Hi, my name's Helen. I'm here with my colleague Stephen. We're both from the Academic Skills Centre. And today we're just having a chat about planning assignments. So it's something that's quite an individual thing and people might do it quite differently. It's also something we get asked about quite a lot. So Stephen, any advice?
Yeah, this is definitely one of the most common areas that we deal with at the Academic Skills Centre. And assignments, of course, come in all different flavours. They can be straightforward essays, they can be reflective pieces, reports of different stripes. But essentially what we try to do is help students through the all-important planning process before drafting and redrafting and then presenting a final piece of work for assessment. And I think one of the most important places to start that sometimes causes a stumbling block for students comes right at the very beginning, considering the overall question that they're being asked to solve or to respond to in some way. But this can also prove a very useful place to start exploring the different areas that they want to use for the research behind the question. So it's always a good idea to start there because it's just the biggest clue that you have. It's possible to, I suppose, break down the overall question into different parts, the clues that you can get from it. And a well-written essay question will give you lots of clues about what it wants you to do. For example, it may have an explicit or implicit action that you need to take, like a verb that you need to respond to, whether that's compare and contrast or critically examine or whatever it is. There's a long list of these different actions and tasks that it can ask you to investigate. It will indicate to you the subject matter that you need to address in fairly explicit terms usually. And if it doesn't, then you can almost assume that the door is left open for a bit more exploration on your end to find things out on your own. So there's lots of different things you can do there. And the first thing I would do in order to to link the question up with the research and the reading that you need to do to prepare for actually writing an assignment is to break that question down into different themes, different subcategories or issues that you might have to deal with in order to adequately respond to the subject being asked of you. And this can take a bit of brainstorming, I think, but it's always worth doing before you delve in and kind of go for broke in the library or online and looking for all the research that you need. So have a think about the different subtopics that you're going to have to cover. And in order to guide your reading, when you do find resources or you do refer to your reading list, it's quite a handy thing, I think, to have a series of more discrete questions underneath those subcategories or those subtopics to guide the reading in a more active and focused way, almost like giving yourself a short comprehension task for each of the smaller sub areas that you've identified. And what you can then do is start to review and consider the information and the data offered to you by the materials you've discovered during your searches, and use that information to plug into those questions and to deliver conclusions to them, to answer them. And this is a really useful exercise, both in terms of becoming more active in your study as opposed to passive. And passive reading, I think we would define as the act of just kind of, well, I suppose passively consuming information from books and texts in a very non-critical way. If you're actually trying to piece together responses to your own questions that you've formed, then you're doing so by a process of weighing up different pieces of information and comparing them with each other, piecing them together into smaller arguments. And this not only promotes general good critical thinking about the topic, but starts to form coherent arguments. And then those can be kind of plugged into the overall argument that you're trying to present in response to the question. So it provides very kind of fertile ground for producing an overall conclusion.
Yeah, definitely. I think as well, yeah, just to completely agree with all of that, I think the more you can do, the more you can think about the structure of your argument, the difference of the question, how you might break that down, and then build up your answer to respond to that is really important. I think sometimes students talk about, they don't spend too much time planning, or quite often they'll say, oh, I just start writing. And I think, everyone works slightly differently, and there's not necessarily anything wrong with that, but you almost always, I think, write probably a better essay, a better answer, a better argument, if you can plan more and plan in more depth. And I think, exactly what you're saying there in terms of trying to plug in different bits of resources or information as part of your argument to build that up is so essential. And that, from my experience, is something that you can do in a highly structured way. You can think about each paragraph, you can think about what you want, the starting point you want to make, the references that are relevant, the argument you're going to make around that, and the conclusion you're going to build to. And you almost giving yourself kind of step-by-step guidance as to kind of, this is where I go next with this point. This is what I'm going to say at the end of this paragraph. And it just makes it so much easier. It prevents things like writer's block, or getting to the end of, a half hour of writing thinking, what am I saying next? If you've got a really structured plan, you've got it all there in front of you. So I think all of that's so important in terms of reading actively, thinking about what you're doing with that information, and then actually feeding it into a plan that's really logical, really well thought out, and hopefully produces a good answer. So hopefully that's been helpful, and you've got some tips from that, and good luck with your assignments.
Good luck.